Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Josh Does Coding. In today's tutorial, we are going to be taking a look at line tracing. So let's hop straight into it. So for starters, I've just created a simple actor. There is nothing done in it. It's just an empty actor blueprint. So we are going to be taking a look at line trace. And you'll notice there is a few different types of line traces. We are going to start by looking at LinetraceByChannel today, as it is the simplest of them, and we'll cover the rest in separate videos. So let's take a look at the node itself. There's a few things we have to look at. So there's the start location. This is a vector. It is the location at which the line trace will start. Then we have a vector for the end. This is where the line trace will end. You have the trace channel. So there is, in Unreal Engine, there's collision channels and there's trace channels. Trace channels are for something like a line trace, and the default ones are visibility and camera. If you want to add separate ones, you can come to your project settings. You can go to your collision settings under engine, and you'll see you have object channels and trace channels. If you want to create a custom one, you click add new trace channel. We'll call this example channel. You can set the default response. So when you create an actor, what will the default response to this be? Ignore means nothing. Overlap means it only causes overlaps. And block means it blocks it, just like any regular collision. So you can click accept. You'll see example channel pop up. And now if we come back to our blueprint, you might need to hit compile and then take a look at it. You'll see we now have this example channel. Next, you have trace complex. So this checks for complex collision. You have actors to ignore. This is an array of actors. Any actors included in this array will not be registered by this line trace. You have the draw debug type. This is debugging the line. So if you do for a frame, it will draw the line trace for a single frame. For duration, you can set how long you want it to last. And persistent means the line will just be there forever. Then you have ignore self, which is a Boolean that basically says ignore the actor that's calling this. Then on the outputs, you have an out hit. So this is a structure. If you drag it out and do break hit results, you can see all of the outputs that come from this. And then you have this below for return hits. This is basically just telling you if it hit anything. Coming over to break hit results, we're going to cover every little detail here. A blocking hit is, was this hit a block? So we went over how each trace channel has a ignore, overlap, or block. If it blocks, this will be true. This is the initial overlap. Is this the first thing it overlapped? You have time. So this is the time basically between 0 and 1 of when it hits. You have the distance. So this is the distance from the starts. You have the location. This is the location of the hit. You have the impact points. This is the point of impact. You have the normal. So just like any normal, it is the normal of the hit location, and it serves just like any other vector normal. You have the impact normal. Again, this is just the normal of the impact points instead of the location. Here you have the physics material. So if you hit a physics material, you have a reference to it. You have the hit actor. So this is a reference to the actor you hit. You have hit components. This is a reference to the component you hit. You have the hit bone name. So if you hit a bone, you will have a reference to the name. You'll get the bone name as well. You have the hit item, the element index, the face index, and these are all just, landscape material related. You have the trace start, and you have the trace end, which again is the same as the start and end over here. So that's a mouthful to cover, but really, you'll notice the main ones you use are going to end up being the hit actor, the hit components, the location. Those are probably the main ones. You may occasionally want distance, Depending on what you're working with, you might want bones. But for the most part, you're not going to be using a lot of these in most cases. So now that we've explained everything about this node, let's go over how to actually use it. So here, we're just going to call line trace on begin play. So we'll just hook up begin play to our line trace. So we need a start location. I'll say the start location is going to be this actor's location. So we can just drag that into the start. And then we need the end location. So this is where the line trace is going to end. For me, I'm going to say we want the end trace to, or line trace to end 1,000 units in front of this actor. So say you're making a first-person shooter and you want to do a hit scan game, you would use a line trace for that instead of using a projectile. So this is an example of how you would do that. So you'd get the actor forward vector. You would multiply this by a float. So if you right click, you can go convert and float. And then you enter the distance you want. So get forward vector, again, it is just the vector in front of the player. So basically, or whatever you pass in the target, in this case being this actor. So again, this is just whichever way is forward relative to this actor and the way it's rotated. So we'll get 1,000 units in front of the player, and we'll add it to the start location. So we're basically just saying the end is our current actor's location plus 1,000 units in front of it, and that is the endpoint. We'll leave it on visibility, actors to ignore. We don't need to do this, but just for an example of how you will do it, you can right-click it, hit promote to variable. Then you can drag out your actors to ignore. If you drag out, you can click add, and this is how you add an actor you want to ignore. So even though we have ignore self on, just as an example, I'll just enter in self here because I don't have another actor to reference. And now actors to ignore contains self, so here it will ignore self. And of course, you can pass in any actor you want here. And you can do this as many times as you want as well. It's an array. You can have as many in there as you want. Cool. So moving on to the output. The return value, this bool, we are going to do a branch, and we're going to make sure we hit something before continuing. So if we did hit something, what do we want to do? In this case, let's just do a print string, and we will print the display name of the actor that we hit. So now if we compile and save that, and we drag out this actor into the scene, and we just, let's plop a cube down in front of it here. Make sure its collision is set. Just make sure it is set to block visibility, and it is. So now if you simulate, first of all, you'll see the print string up there in the top left. We'll do that again. It says cube because we're hitting this cube. So you can see the start point right here is where the actor is. Of course, our actor is invisible, but you know it's there. Right here, you'll see when it actually makes contact, there's a little square. That is the impact point. That is the exact point where this line trace hit this cube. You'll notice the line turns from red to green. Since this is a line trace by channel, it only returns the first object that blocks it. So after it hits this, you'll know it registered a hit because the rest of the line will be green, and that means the green line, if it hits another thing, is not going to return it. So that is the basics of line tracing. In future videos, we'll cover different types of traces, but if this video did help you out, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below if there's a specific node you want to take a look at in the next Blueprint 101 video. With that said, have a good day, guys, and good luck with your games.